So,
Are you guys ready to make some picks, Julio? You ready to rock?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so first fight up here, UFC 204, Stefan Struve. If you ain't Dutch, you ain't much. The minus 185 favorite against Daniel Omielanchuk. Ken Flo, heavyweights. Who do you like?
man, Omielanchuk is very dangerous, but I'm going to go with the big man, Stefan Struve. I think he's going to be able to keep him out on the outside. Dealing with someone that tall, that long, and a guy who really needs this win, I think it's going to be tough for Daniel. Going with Struve.
Julio Struve, the favorite here. Ken Flo's going chalk. Who do you like?
Well, I was a big fan of Stefan Struve for a long time, and I hope that when he came back from his heart disease, he'd be a little better since his heart would be working at a higher capacity. But the situation pulled out with the Matt Mitrione fight. He got knocked out by Alistair Overeem. He got beat by Jared Rosholt. The only guys that he's beat recently are Nogueira and Bigfoot, who they're both at the end of their lines. Omielanchuk has KO power early and late. He's got 16 submissions, so he can hang on the ground with Stefan. Stefan got a huge reach advantage, but he doesn't really use it that well. He only got knocked out by Roy Nelson and Mark Hunt, who are both similar to Omielanchuk. I wish he'd train with John Jones to learn how to utilize his reach better, but I'm going to go with Omielanchuk, get you some underdog points.
I like it. Back in the Polish underdog. And the body of work for Omielanchuk is pretty good. Hard guy to finish. I don't believe he's ever been knocked out. I think all of his losses are by decision. So we'll see if Struve can, wrap that head around his. I don't know. Interesting fight there. All right, next up on the main card, Jimmy Manuwa, number 8 in the world. Ovince St. Preux, number 5 in the world here at light heavyweight. Ovince St. Preux, the minus 160 favorite. Come back on Manuwa at plus 135. Julio, we'll start with you here. Manuwa making his return against OSP. Who do you like?
Yeah, both of these guys have only lost to the best in the division. Jones, Gustafsson, Rumble, Glover, Bader. Either guy can catch the other guy with a knockout. But I think OSP is just a little more powerful, a little more athletic, a little better on the ground, and the scouts that he's collected are a little more impressive. OSP to win.
Ken Flo, obviously St. Preux has the benefit now of going 25 minutes with John Jones in addition to headlining in the UFC several times. Manuwa, the poster boy. I mean, we called some of his early fights in the UFC. I think we both, even though the record says what it says, he's only lost to the elites, thought that maybe he would have had bigger fights or been in a bigger position by now. What do you think about Manuwa in this spot? Does he get the win?
I don't. I think Julio has it right. I'm going to pick OSP as well. I think Manuwa is the cleaner striker. I think he's the better striker. He might even hit harder than OSP, but I think the way that OSP mixes things up, I think he's an awkward guy to fight. I think he's going to be riding high on confidence coming off that John Jones fight, and OSP win.
All right, speaking of riding high with confidence, Gegard Mousasi, minus 330. Massive win over Thiago Marreta Santos at UFC 200. Vitor Belfort, the plus 270 underdog here. I'm encouraged to see the fight. I'm not sure how close it is. Julio, you going with the heavy chalk Mousasi or the underdog Vitor Belfort?
Well, I have a nickname for Vitor Belfort. It's Cheetor Belfort. And now that USADA's around, we're seeing what he really looks like. He's clearly still an elite striker, but so is Gegard Mousasi. I think if Mousasi can survive the first 3 minutes, he'll be able to pick Cheetor apart and finish him with strikes or submission.
All right, Gegard Mousasi for Julio. Ken Flo, who do you like?
I think that Vitor Belfort is a fighter. I've been training hard. Knock him out. So I think also his name is Cheetor. So I might win by decision. So, I want to fight for the
All right, so I'm going with Gegard Mousasi. Gegard Mousasi, I think he wins by decision. I think he will be able to survive that first 5 minutes against Vitor Belfort. Talking to Rashad Evans, he says that Vitor has never looked better. He's been doing a lot of training over at Vitor's gym. And, speed is something that it just really hasn't gotten away for him. Still some of the fastest hands in the UFC. However, I think Mousasi, he's very slick. I think he's going back to that kind of conservative mode that has gotten him a lot of wins over his career. So Mousasi by decision.
It's always interesting to watch Vitor fight. The recent history being what it is, and obviously he was the poster boy for the TRT era, deservedly so or otherwise. But it's always interesting to watch him fight. We'll see if he can turn back the clock a little bit here as a big underdog against Gegard Mousasi. All right, main event. I'm really interested to hear what you two sharp minds have to say about this because, as I've said, Michael Bisping, minus 230 favorite, come back on Dan Henderson, plus 190. I expected Bisping to be a bigger favorite here, just relative to where he is in his prime. The only thing I don't like about Bisping, obviously, is that he is fighting with one eye. But that said, Julio, we'll start with you. You know, I thought I'd see Bisping around minus 300. The price is shorter than that. Does Hendo spring the upset Saturday night?
So, look, I love both fighters. If either one won, I would be happy with it. But when I look at the facts, all signs point to Bisping. Henderson can absolutely knock him out, but he's 3-6 in the last 9 fights, and Bisping looked great since USADA came in and the TRT ban took hold, and he's actually on the hottest streak of his career right now. If you think about it, if he wins, it'll be his 5th win in a row in the UFC, and that's his longest streak. Now, we may be seeing the best Michael Bisping ever against the worst Dan Henderson ever. My only worry is that I know that Bisping wants that KO, so as long as he doesn't hunt it and doesn't get overextended and expose himself to an H-bomb, I think he wins by decision.
All right, Michael Bisping by decision for Julio. Ken Flo, your thoughts on the UFC 204 main event? We'll also need a round and a method of victory, sir.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'm going to go with Michael Bisping as well. I think the main thing for him is not trying to repay the favor and forcing that knockout over Dan Henderson, and especially early, right? So I think if you can get by those first 10 minutes against Dan Henderson, you can start to relax a little bit. He's not the same guy that fought Dan Henderson back at, what was it, UFC 100?
Yeah.
You know, he used to back up really high with his chin up, circling to the power side with that chin way up in the air, their hands down low. He's not that guy anymore. He's defensively so much more sound. He's much more comfortable and confident, has a much better stance defensively. I think he's better with his feet getting in and getting out. I think Michael Bisping wins, and I think he actually stops Dan Henderson around the 3rd round. I think he gets the TKO in the 3rd. Dan Henderson, though, always dangerous. I don't care if he's fighting freaking Cain Velasquez. If he lands that right hand, Dan Henderson can knock you out. So that's always going to be the fear with Dan. I think Michael Bisping is very aware of it. I think Jason Perillo has him very sharp right now. Going with Bisping.
And Kenny, you know we've both been on the wrong side picking against Dan Henderson as underdog before. I mean, he's made a career of coming through in these situations. But I really do think short of Michael Bisping, to your point, getting ahead of himself and, you know, forcing something, I just think he's too sharp with 25 minutes to fight. And, you know, I just think eventually he'll get Hendo down and, you know, probably be smart enough and efficient enough to not gas himself out while trying to get him out of there. And I don't know. Of course, Hendo's power is always there, and it's always a threat. But, gosh, wouldn't that be something if at 46 years old, Dan Henderson found a way to knock Bisping out in Manchester, England, and walk out as champion? You know, I'm not sure he wants any piece of Rockhold or Jacare thereafter, but, man. And Chris Weidman, of course, and Romero in that mix as well. All right, Julio Jacobo, great job as usual, man. So, theater class later today. What's on the docket there in the greater Los Angeles area?
I actually have improv practice tonight with my improv team. I just want to say real fast, TJ DeSantis, I earned some points. You lost them. You're taking away everything I worked for, motherfucker. I'm still waiting for you guys to call me for the Julio Jacobo Minute. I'll be there. I'll outshine Ray Longo. Shout out to the Weed Zillions. I'm out.
Julio just killed it. Yo,
the greatest.
Oh my God. Oh,
Julio
wow.
Jacobo Minute.
That's
is
it,
so
John. Send me
bad.
his number, dude. I got to meet up with him now.
That's it. You have to. I wonder if he does that improv class stoned out of his mind. Or
yes, and as